Hello, everyone, and welcome to PRConnectionsRadio.com. And I am the host of the PR Connections Show. My name is Guy Dawson, and I am here with a good friend of mine. His name is Phil Jaynes. He is the president of IATSE 720, Local 720, International Association of Theatrical Stage Employees. Did I get it right, Phil?
Oh, you blew it. It's the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees.
I've been saying IATSE for so many years. I've never really actually know. Well, I probably did know, but it's not
I'm
easy
sure you
to
did at one point.
remember. But
Yeah,
welcome
it doesn't flow.
and Phil, again, being the president of a union is a very a position that requires a lot of responsibility. And Phil, how long have you been president of IATSE Local 720?
Literally January. I got sworn in January 1st, 2020. So it just passed the year anniversary.
1 year as the president of IATSE Local 720. And of course, this has been probably the most interesting year that I'm a fellow stagehand, by the way. I've been in the industry a long time, and definitely this is a year unlike any year that we have ever experienced. And as the president, what's that been like for you?
It's been tough. We came in. We had two of our three primary officers were brand new. We came in. We had big plans. We had started our big plans before we were even sworn in, actually. And then the pandemic came in March, and that stopped everything. And we really had to pivot and decide how we're going to, handle the business of the union, how we're going to try to help our membership, and that's pretty much it. Everything changed. It went from a mindset where you're going to be doing. We have a legislative session just started, so I've been doing a lot of groundwork for that, and that's still going on. But now it's not. It hasn't been a priority over the last 6 months. Luckily, some of the federal aid and the health insurance, not health insurance, but the unemployment insurance, things like that were really helping and sustaining our members. But then when July came around, it became real for a lot of them, and so we had to come up with different ways to help them. We just can't take our treasury and just give it, because that would be against the law, actually. And so we had to come up with another plan, and we came up with Applethorne, the business rep, came up with the idea of creating a food bank. And now we have a food bank where the membership was generous enough to allot $400,000 to create this food bank, and 2 times a month, and we've got one coming up this Thursday and Friday of next week. 2 times a month, we open up a food bank, and we put boxes together. Sometimes they have gift cards, not every time, but for the holidays, for Thanksgiving and Christmas, we had gift cards that we put in there, $50 gift cards, and these can really, help out some of the members. Some members are, they're really struggling, and this really helps them out. And then you have some members that are, they're doing all right, but it still helps them out. So it really helps everybody, and also helps the volunteers, because it gives them something to do and something to look forward to, so that they feel like they're contributing to the union and helping their fellow brothers, and pretty much anybody in labor and the community. We don't turn anybody away.
And as you had mentioned, Phil, you've had to make a really big adaptation in the way that the hall is being run right now. And the whole entertainment industry is really in a place that is uncertain. Ordinarily, this time of year, convention season would be really big. I mean, so many things that we are accustomed to seeing in our industry are on hiatus. In being the leader of an organization, how are you helping everyone who's a part of IATSE Local 720 to adapt? I know you had mentioned you opened a food bank, which I think is a wonderful idea, by the way, that the union had decided to want to help their members out with a component like that. But the lack of work and the uncertainty of when people are going to be able to go back and be stagehands again, what role do you play as the leader in managing that with all the members of the union?
Pretty much my job hasn't changed. It's still, I'm essentially the CEO of the union. So essentially my job is to make sure that Business Rep Applethorne and Secretary Treasurer Ron Poveromo are still continuing their business, which they are. They're doing spectacular jobs, and making sure that that stuff is getting done. We also, even though the union is closed to walk-ins, if you call the union and you have a problem, a lot of times they can make an appointment. You can still come by and see people, see myself or Business Rep Thorne or Ron Poveromo, or Jackie in the office is still there. Jennifer is still there, so you can answer questions. So we're there to help with essentially the answers. Now, a lot of the answers we have aren't answers that people want to hear. That's the tough part of the job, is telling them that, well, you've got to, pointing them in the right direction to find the answers that they do need. Some of the answers we can give them the answers to, and sometimes they're not answers that, that the member wants to hear. That's a really tough part of the job, because you can't, there's a lot of things you just can't help with. I can't pay somebody's mortgage, but I can point them in the right direction to an agency that might be able to help them. So we can do things like that. But the actual business of the local still goes on, even though the business that we're in, entertainment, has stopped. I mean, it's dead. We represent approximately 4,000 members and referrents. Out of those 4,000, there might be 50 working full time, and they're house AV guys. A show might come in, a motion picture might come into town. We've had a couple come into town that we've got stagehands work on that. But even though the industry is shut down, the business still goes forward. That you still have to pay the electrical bills. You still have to file grievances. You still have to have arbitrations and go to the NLRB and deal with cases. You still have to, that business is actually going. It's going along strong. It's going fairly well. If you would have asked us back in March of last year, when we first shut down, where would we be in a year? It was really, there was really uncertainty out there for us, and us people who work in the union also. The International has stepped in. We've all kind of come together, and everybody's helping out. The International stepped in. If a local gets into a financial situation where they're literally running out of money, they can get a loan from the International. They're not going to let a local dissolve or disappear without at least offering them a loan to float them through this crisis. But the work's still going on. I'm still there pretty much 40 hours a week, 9 to 5. Same thing with Business Rep Thorne and Secretary Treasurer Poveromo. Everybody's still doing the job of the local. Membership-wise, we still try to help everybody that we can. We're just a phone call away. We also need, and this is very important, and I tell the members when I talk to them, that only you know what situation you're in. Only you know that your final mortgage payment's coming up. Only you know that you have to feed your kids. Nobody knows that. And I think a lot of members will sit back and they'll think, oh, I've got it bad, but I know there are people out there that have it worse than I do. And they can't think that way. You have to think about your situation. And if you're going to lose your house or something, devastating like that, don't lose it without checking every opportunity. And you can either call us and we can point you in a direction where there are agencies that might be able to help you, or you can go to the Local 720 website that has a list of agencies, food banks, things like that could help you.
And I'm sure there are people out there, Phil, who don't know what a stagehand actually does. Could you explain the ins and outs of what it's like to be a stagehand? What exactly does a stagehand do?
That's a very, you would think that's a very short answer, right? Okay, historically, a stagehand is the person who works behind the scenes during a show that makes the show go on. So you'll have the head carpenter, you'll have the head props, the head audio, head electrician, and all their assistants, and wardrobe, and all their assistants that basically put everything together to make the show go on. So if you go see a show, say you go see Jersey Boys, the head prop person would take care of all those tables that got pushed out, all the fake bottles, the fake beers, the guns, the violins that are props, everything that puts that show together. So historically, that's what stagehands do. We started out, back in 1893 in vaudeville and burlesque and those type things, and stagehands were the guys behind the scene. Now that's the quick answer. Now, in reality, what it's morphed to, what it's expanded to, is to include AV guys, audiovisual guys for hotels, films, and television production. All the guys behind the scenes on that. Convention and trade show, which is probably the largest portion of Local 720. So convention and trade show. So when, say, CES goes into town, and you go to CES as a person from the public, and you're walking around looking at all these electronics, you're probably not realizing that, oh, look, there's truss up there, and there's all this theatrical lighting up there, and the power to the theatrical lighting, and some of the booths have stages to them. The stages where the MC is talking from, the stage that the car is sitting on. All those things are put together by stagehands in the trade show industry. So it really encompasses everything. We're a mixed local, so we encompass all of that work here in our jurisdiction. So you will have locals throughout the International Alliance that are just a stage local, a prop local, wardrobe local, and they just handle those disciplines. Now we're a mixed local, and it's a great thing because we cover a lot of work, but it's kind of our cross to bear because one day I can have a guy in my office that's the video engineer on the biggest, newest video switcher, or a head electrician on the biggest, newest lighting board console, and I can represent them. And I also represent the guy who just got to town, and he's he has a background, say, in carpentry, and he just decided to come down here and sign up, and he's just starting out, and he gets work from just basically loading in a show, the physical work of getting the boxes into the convention area, or if he gets on a show, actually building the set pieces. So you really get, the guy who just unloads the truck or pushes the boxes in, all the way to the highest of the high end in entertainment. So pretty much everything that's got anything to do with entertainment, we cover the behind the scenes people.
Yeah, it's an amazing industry that I have been a part of since 1996. Just unbelievable experiences you have when you're a stagehand, being behind the scenes, as Phil had mentioned. How about you? What got you into the industry of being a stagehand and ultimately joining IATSE 720?
Ultimately a girlfriend. So it all starts with a girlfriend. So no, I actually graduated from Oklahoma State University in 1988. I have a degree in journalism with a minor in history, and which typically isn't the typical road to become a stagehand. I worked in broadcast television, then went out on cruise ships and decided that it's a lot more fun to work on a cruise ship and run a TV station than it is to run around with a 30-pound camera on your shoulder. Back then they had a 3/4 inch tape deck as opposed to all-in-one like you have now, or us doing this Zoom event with a camera this big. So I did that, and then my girlfriend, we got off ships, and she was a dancer, and we moved to Vegas. And so when I got to Vegas, I literally came down 1994 and dropped off my resume at the union and met with BJ Thomas, who just passed away, who I know you know. And he looked at our resumes, and there's about 5 of us, gave us a little speech about unionism, and then I didn't hear another thing for another year. And actually, when I got a call from the union, I was a little confused who was calling me and offering me work because they said Local 720, and I was, what? So I got into that, and that's what got me into Local 720. I took that first call. A couple months later, I was, at the time, I was running a spotlight at the Aladdin for a show called Country Tonight, and they were paying us $12 an hour. And I knew that union houses at the time, I found out later, were making $18.58 an hour. And well, why is that? Why am I at the Aladdin Hotel, which is a long-standing hotel on the Las Vegas Strip? Why am I making $12 an hour when a guy right next door at Bally's is making, running the same spotlight, making $18.58 an hour? So they had started an organizing campaign over in the theater performing arts, and I'd heard about it. And so I called up the union guys at the time and, I had a whole bunch of questions for them. I met with them, and they answered all the questions in a way that I found pleasing, and it was something I wanted to be part of. So I got to, worked with the organizing. We had an election, we won. And that's how I started into the union. When the Aladdin shut down, and it would have been November of '97, we never did get a contract. And I got a call from the Tropicana Hotel. Somebody who had, I didn't know that well, Tim Sloan, but I knew of him. He had a position open up, and he saw that the work that I'd put in at the Aladdin, and offered me it's just a bounce call. It was no guarantee of work or anything like that. And he was doing at the time, he was the head flyman at the Folies Bergère, and asked me if I wanted to come and do some work. And sure, absolutely. My hotel literally shut down. Sure, I'd love to. So I went to work for Folies Bergère, and that was in November. And fortunately for me, unfortunately for Dion Diamond, he was a longtime member of Local 720, who was the flyman there at the Folies Bergère. He passed away on December 31st, it would have been 98. And actually December 31st would have been 97, but going into 98, passed away that night at work. And I got a call I got calls that night, but back then you had a pager, and I was out on the Strip, and I just kept looking, who's paging me on New Year's Eve? And called the next morning, and then I didn't leave the Tropicana for 10 years. And had a great career at the Tropicana, met my wife there. And then about 2008, I switched over and went to work for Jersey Boys. And then again, had a great career at Jersey Boys. Good time, met a lot of great people, and ultimately became a business agent for 720. And that would have been, I think, I'm not 100% sure when that was. I was about a business agent for about 3 years before I became president. So about 16, 17, went to work for the union.
Did you ever imagine when you were just getting started in the union back in the mid-90s that at some point you would end up being the president of the local? Did you have aspirations to do that, or was it just something that you kind of started to move towards as you went along in your career as a stagehand?
It was something that I don't want to say it was inevitable, but it was always on my mind. It was on other people's minds. I literally had people say things to me throughout the years. I was just telling Ron Poveroma this story yesterday. When we were in negotiations with the Aladdin, Bob Trombetta, who was the international rep, this was before we got trusteed. He was here helping us with those negotiations, and I wasn't happy with how the negotiations were going. And I remember walking out of a negotiation one time, and Trombetta comes up to behind me, and he's like, "Phil, you'd better. Are you learning anything? Because you're the future of this local." And it just kind of stuck in my head, and that's always stuck in my head. And then when I became head carpenter at the Folies Bergère, I'd have people say, "Well, why don't you run for something? The election comes around every 3 years. Why don't you run for something, right? Why don't you run for something?" And my stock answer was always, "I'm too young. I don't. When I'm 50 is when I'll throw my hat into the ring." And that was literally my stock answer, because I always believed that, when I was 40 years old, and only at that time had only been in the local, say, 10 years, what kind of experience do I have? And I'm also, at the time I was at the Folies Bergère. That was my experience with the local, was at the Folies Bergère. There's a lot of other stuff that goes on that has nothing to do with a showroom. Like I said earlier, majority of our work is convention trade show. So I never felt like I had the knowledge until I was 50, because by the time I was 50, it's like, okay, I've been around, I know what's going on. I would go to the meetings. As head carpenter, I was involved in everything that went on my stage at Follies. So I had an understanding. And then I had an opportunity on my 50th year, a position opened up for the business agent. And at the time I knew that Jersey Boys wasn't going to last much longer. So I reached out to John Gorey at the time, who was the business rep, and I said, hey, if you don't have anybody, Jerry Helmuth at the time was a business agent, and he was running for the president's position. And I told him, if Jerry wins and you don't have anybody, I would be interested in being a business agent. And fast forward, Jerry wins. I get offered the position of business agent. And then once I got into the building, I was so glad that I didn't run for office because when you get in there and you're working it day by day, you realize how much you don't know about running a union. And so I'm glad that I had that opportunity, to where when I ultimately did run for president, I was comfortable with how everything worked, the personalities, the politics, the history. You learn so much more by spending so much time down there. There are a lot of things you'll see a business rep or a secretary treasurer or a president do something, and you'll think, well, why did they do it that way? Why? And then you realize, once you have the conversation with them, or once you look into it a little more, well, they really didn't have a choice. They couldn't. The thing that seems so obvious is against the law, so you can't do that. And so it really, once you get in there and start working at it, you really opens your eyes to why people have done things in the past, and how things actually work. So that's when I became president. And but was it a surprise to me when I decided to do it? No, it was something like, well, you knew you were going to get to this point. Now you're at this point. So at this point, you can either turn left or turn right. And I turned right and threw my hat into the position.
And the roles of unions, Phil, have dramatically shifted in American society, I think a lot in about the last 30 or 40 years. It's a different climate now. How is IATSE adapting to a world that is not as friendly necessarily to unions as it used to be? And specifically, how is your local making an adaptation in order to continue to provide opportunities for staging?
Well, we're constantly organizing, and that's something that's one of those things that a lot of people, members, non-members, everybody, don't understand, that to organize a unit, you have to have a unit to organize. So when a new hotel, say when Resorts World opens up, I can't just call up the Resorts World right now and say, hey, we want you to be a local, we want to have a contract with you. Well, legally, if they were to do that, it would put them in a bind and us in a bind, because we're essentially making decisions for employees that they haven't even hired yet. So the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, their focus is to whatever the employees want. They're not going to let an employer walk in and force a contract on a group of employees, and they're not going to let a union walk in and force a contract on the employees. So what you need people that are working there, that, like I did at the Aladdin, that need to sit back and go, wait a minute, they're not doing this right. I'm not happy with this. And contact us, and then we'll coach them, we'll help them through the process after that. If anybody has any friends working anything, we're always looking for ways to get into places. The climate of labor since I mean, I'll give you a little, history on labor. The Wagner Act was created or passed in 1935. That created the National Labor Relations Board. It established the legal rights of workers to join unions and actually, bargain collectively. And then ever since 1935, those laws have been like whittled away. The Taft-Hartley Act in 1947 essentially came up with right to work, which says that, I got a job up at the Tropicana for Follies Bergère. I know it's a union house, but you know what? I don't want to become a union member. I'm not going to pay union dues. I don't want anything to do with the union. So that whittles away at the cohesiveness of the unit. So you'll have these guys working next to you that aren't paying their fair share. They're free riders. But I'll tell you what, when that person gets in trouble, by law, the union have to step up and protect that guy. And so it's kind of like being a member of a gym and not paying. I get to go work out at the gym, but no, I'm not going to pay. I know you're paying, but I'm not going to pay because I can work out for free. That's essentially what that is. And then the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act came out in 1959, and that basically regulates the way that unions deal with their internal affairs. And these all three are actually two. So the Wagner Act in 1935 is the best that unions ever had. And it's just been whittling away ever since. Then people talk about politics, about how, well, both sides are the same. They're not. One side is clearly pro-labor, and one side is clearly not. An example of that is the T1 form. It's a form that the Office of Labor, I believe it started. No, it's not Office of Labor Management. It's one of the offices that covers unions. There's about 4 of them. But anyways, it's called a T1 form. Essentially, if you have a trust, like we do a pension, training trust, wage disability trust, so we have 3 trusts. If we pay into a trust, then we have to fill out this form. Well, you think, okay, what's the big deal? It's a form. No, it's a very in-depth form that's going to cost us about $8,000 per form a year, because we have to go out and hire an accounting firm to do it. So that's $24,000 right out of the union. So they're always whittling away at our rights and as a union, and so we're always pushing back. There's the PRO Act that just got introduced to the Congress and the Senate a couple weeks ago. Hopefully, I'm sure it'll fly through the Congress. I'm sure the Senate will try to stall it. If we can get it past the Senate, I know President Biden will sign it. So we're doing things like that. We've got the legislative session that's going on right now. I've got some things going on with that I don't feel comfortable with talking about right now publicly, but there are things that are going forward like that to kind of give some relief to unions, to make it easier to be a member of a union, easier to join a union, easier to organize a unit, and things like that. So we're very Local 720 we're pretty proactive about it here in the state.
And of course, we're in unprecedented times, Phil, where there is a lot of uncertainty. In spite of that, what is your vision for IATSE Local 720? Where do you feel your organization is headed once we're back on track and entertainment and the convention industry is thriving again?
Well, I think this is the lowest we're going to get. Actually, every day we're a little not low, if that makes sense. The lowest we were going to get was probably, for the individuals, was probably the gap between July 31st and when the federal money started coming back in with the unemployment insurance. Here in Las Vegas, we have the Las Vegas Visitors Authority, LVCVA. And their job is essentially to pump up Las Vegas and get people to come here for conventions, trade shows, entertainment, races, and the football fields, and all this stuff, the stadium, to really promote Las Vegas. So we're very fortunate to have that board that is out there doing all the PR and marketing for Las Vegas. I went to a meeting. They have their monthly meeting. Went to it, I believe, last Tuesday. they're feeling very positive about the future. But the thing is, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We just have to get there. The problem is that the light at the end of the tunnel is June. So we're still 4 months away from that. But they're hanging their hat on the World of Concrete, which is, I believe, the first week in June. That's going to be the show that starts off all the other shows coming into Las Vegas. So at that point, we're really going to be needing people. And I don't think it's not going to explode right off the bat, but it's going to start growing. And I believe that it's going to be a pretty steep incline. And I believe that we are going to get our biggest problem then at some point is going to get to where we were before the pandemic. Our biggest problem before the pandemic, right before the pandemic, was that we didn't have enough people. And I know a lot of members were surprised when you tell them that. And because, you're a member, you're out working, you're working all the time, you don't think about it, you just know you're busy, but they don't see the calls that, we would run, I think 8 or 9 times in 2019 where we ran out of labor. Now that's not a good thing. You never want to run out of labor when you have your clients, but the people you have a relationship with. Your partners call you up and say, I need 100 guys for tomorrow, and you can only send them 50. That's not a good thing. So our biggest problem was we were looking at going 2020. We were supposed to pass 100 million in payroll, and it would have been a record year. 2019 was a record year. I believe 2018 was a record year. We've been on this incline of just growth, and we were looking at a record year, and our biggest problem was we need more people. And it's not just us. The Valley needs more people. We weren't the only ones running out of labor. Everybody was running out of labor. So I think that we will get back to that. We're going to hit a point where the shows are going to come back. I mean, the shows in the hotels, some of them have already come back and opened up. The AV guys in hotels, some of them are already back to work. They're already having meetings that they're doing the AV for, the audiovisual for. That stuff's going to start coming back when the governor, if he continues to lift the, how many people you can have in a room and the capacities and things like that. It's just going to grow. And then everybody in the nation is watching Las Vegas World of Concrete, 1st of June. And however that goes, these companies want to come to Las Vegas and spend their dollars and have their show, and everybody wants to get out of their house and do all these things. And once that happens, I think it's just going to explode. We're going to see a boom. And then my biggest concern will be, oh crap, we're back in the same situation we were in the beginning of 2020 where we don't have enough people. So I would much rather be in that position than the position we're in right now.
Well, it's been just a pleasure to speak with you, Phil, about an industry that is very dear to my heart. Again, I have been a stagehand for many, many years. I just love everything that IATSE Local 720 represents. And when you think of the bright lights of Las Vegas and all these wonderful shows and concerts that are happening, but you don't realize how many really dedicated, hardworking people are behind the scenes that are making all of these things happen. And I know that IATSE 720 has definitely contributed greatly to my life and so many other people's lives. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, if they wanted to maybe become a stagehand, or if they wanted to learn more about how they could hire some labor through the local, how could they get in contact with you?
They could just call the local. It's 702-873-3450. And somebody will answer the phone. If not, leave a message. I always tell people, leave a message. It's very important. If you call my cell phone and you don't leave a message, I'm not calling you back. So it's very important to leave a message and somebody will get back to you. Like I said, we're going to be in a position where we're going to need more people. Not right now. Obviously, we've got people. We don't have any work right now, and we've got enough people to cover the work when it starts coming back. But I think that I'm looking at like the end of February, March of next year, I truly believe that we're going to be in a situation where we're going to need more labor, more people.
Well, thanks again for stopping by, Phil, and we appreciate all of you for tuning into the PR Connections radio show at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. Stay tuned for a host of brand new shows that we're going to be rolling out on the network, and stay tuned to our social media at Facebook and YouTube for announcements about upcoming shows. Take care of yourselves and have a wonderful day.